Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. I think it's safe to say that The Truman Show is a film that stuck with a lot of us. It's got this really unique blend of satire and drama and even sci-fi that really gets you thinking.
Yeah, you're right. It really makes you question what's real and what's not, and how much control we have over our own lives.
Exactly. And you know what's crazy? This film came out way back in '98, but it feels even more relevant now than ever.
Absolutely. It's like it predicted the whole reality TV craze and the way we're all so connected online and constantly sharing our lives.
And don't even get me started on the surveillance aspect. Like Big Brother is practically knocking at our doors these days.
For sure. It's all a bit Truman-esque, isn't it? I mean, just think about Sea Haven, the seemingly idyllic town where Truman lives his whole life.
Oh yeah, Sea Haven. It's like the ultimate manufactured reality.
Right. Exactly. The filmmakers use all sorts of visual cues to hint at that, like the
Mm.
color palette's super bright and pastel, almost too perfect.
It's like those Instagram filters that make everything look so flawless. Like you
Hmm.
can't even tell what's real anymore.
Ha ha, right. And then there's the way they use the fisheye lens in certain scenes, distorting the edges of the frame. It's subtle, but it really adds to the feeling that something's off.
Yeah, like we're looking into this warped reality. It's like they're constantly reminding us that we're watching a constructed world.
Exactly. And that sense of being watched, of being controlled, that's at the heart of the whole film, isn't it?
Absolutely. And speaking of control, can we talk about Christoph for a minute? The guy is like the ultimate puppet master pulling all the strings in Truman's life.
Yeah, he's a fascinating character because he's both brilliant and kind of terrifying. He's created this whole elaborate world and he's so invested in it.
But is he really doing it for Truman's benefit? Or is it more about his own ego and his need for control?
That's the big question, right? He claims to be giving Truman a perfect life free from pain and suffering. But at what cost? Truman has no real choices, no freedom to experience life on his own terms.
It makes you think, would you rather have a life that's safe and predictable, or a life that's full of risks and uncertainties, but ultimately your own?
It's like choosing between living in a bubble or venturing out into the unknown. And that's something that The Truman Show really makes you confront.
For sure. And even though Christoph tries so hard to control everything, there are these little glitches that start to appear, right? Like cracks in the facade.
Yeah, those glitches are so important because they represent the moments when Truman starts to question his reality. Like the falling spotlight that's labeled serious. It's a tiny detail, but it plants a seed of doubt in his mind.
It's like that first time you realize that maybe things aren't what they seem.
Yeah.
It's a bit unsettling, but also kind of exciting, right? Because it opens up a whole world of possibilities.
Exactly. And it's through those cracks in the illusion that Truman starts to glimpse the truth. He begins to see how his world is manufactured and how he's been manipulated his whole life.
And then there's the whole symbolism of water. It's both a barrier and a source of freedom for Truman.
Right. Oh, absolutely. The vast ocean surrounds him. It's his prison wall, but it also represents the unknown, the possibility of escape.
It's like this visual metaphor for the fears and limitations that hold us back in life, but also for the vast potential that lies beyond those limits.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's Truman's confrontation with his fear of water that allows him to break free and claim his own destiny.
That's so true. It's like the film is telling us that sometimes we have to face our deepest fears in order to find true freedom.
And you know what else is interesting? The role of Sylvia. She's kind of like a catalyst for Truman's awakening.
Right, she sees through the facade and tries to warn him. She represents genuine connection and truth, something that's totally lacking in Truman's world.
Exactly. And of course, she gets quickly removed from the show, labeled as unstable. It's chilling how those in power can manipulate narratives to silence dissenting voices.
It's so true. It happens in real life all the time.
Mm.
And it's something we need to be constantly aware of. Speaking of awareness,
Mm.
are you aware that we're actually out of time for this segment?
Oh, wow. Time flies when you're deep diving. We'll be back soon to continue exploring The Truman Show and its relevance to our lives today.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back, folks. We're right in the middle of dissecting The Truman Show, a film that keeps on giving.
Before the break, we were talking about Sylvia and how she represents this pure, genuine connection that Truman just doesn't have in his manufactured world.
Exactly. It's like a breath of fresh air for him. But of course, she gets yanked from the show, labeled as unstable. to keep up the illusion for Truman.
Which is just so unsettling, right?
Hmm.
How easily those in power can manipulate narratives to maintain control and silence anyone who questions the story they're pushing.
It really makes you think about how information is controlled and sometimes even weaponized in the real world, doesn't it? Like, think about social media or the news.
Right, it's like we're all living in these little echo chambers where we're only exposed to information that reinforces our existing beliefs. It's kind of scary when you think about it.
It definitely is. It's a reminder to be critical thinkers and to
Right.
always question the sources of information we're consuming. Don't just take everything at face value.
Agreed. We have to be active participants in shaping our own realities
Mhm.
and not just passively absorbing whatever's being fed to us.
100%. And speaking of shaping reality, let's circle back to Christoph for a second. The guy is obsessed with controlling every aspect of Truman's life.
He's like a god in Truman's world, isn't he?
Mhm.
Deciding what happens when and to whom. It's pretty messed up when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely ethically questionable. He even orchestrates this whole near-death experience with Truman's father to instill a fear of water and keep him trapped in Sea Haven.
Talk about manipulation, right? I mean, the guy literally manufactures a traumatic experience to control Truman's behavior.
It's a really thought-provoking aspect of the film because it makes us question how far is too far? Even if it's for someone's own good, is it ever okay to manipulate and control someone's life to that extent?
Right, like where do we draw the line between protection and control? It's a tough question, and The Truman Show doesn't shy away from exploring those gray areas.
And what's interesting is that despite all of Christoph's meticulous planning and control, things don't always go according to plan. Those little glitches start to pop up more and more.
Right, like the falling studio light labeled serious. That's a pretty big glitch. It's like the universe itself is trying to send Truman a message.
Exactly. It's a symbol of the truth breaking through the facade of Truman's world. And those glitches, they plant seeds of doubt in his mind, which eventually lead to his awakening.
It's like that saying, you can't fool all the people all the time. Eventually, the truth has a way of coming out.
Right. And Truman starts to notice other inconsistencies too, like how the people around him act so strangely, like they're following a script or something.
They totally are. It's so obvious when you know the truth. But for Truman, it's this slow dawning realization that something isn't quite right.
And then there's the powerful symbolism of water. It's both a source of fear and a symbol of freedom for Truman. It's like this constant reminder of what he's missing out on.
The vastness of the ocean represents all the possibilities that exist beyond the confines of Sea Haven. It's both terrifying and alluring to him.
The filmmakers use those wide shots of Truman surrounded by water so effectively. It really emphasizes his isolation and the limitations that have been imposed upon him.
And his ultimate escape, his decision to sail into the unknown despite his fear. That's such a powerful moment. It's like he's finally breaking free from the chains that have been holding him back.
It's a beautiful metaphor for confronting our fears and embracing the unknown. It's about choosing authenticity and freedom over the comfort and safety of a manufactured reality.
That scene where his boat crashes through the painted sky, it's just so iconic. It's like he's literally breaking through the illusion and stepping into a whole new world.
And that's what makes The Truman Show so inspiring, isn't it? It reminds us that we all have the potential to break free from the things that are holding us back and create our own destinies.
It's a powerful message of hope and resilience. Even when it feels like we're trapped, we always have the power to choose something different.
And that choice, that act of defiance, is something we see in Truman's final confrontation with Christoph. He literally stands at the exit to the real world and asks, "Was nothing real?"
And Christoph's response, "You were real. That's what made you so good to watch." It's so chilling because it reveals how utterly detached he is from basic human empathy.
He's so focused on the spectacle, on the entertainment value, that he completely misses the point. He doesn't understand that true connection and authentic experiences can't be manufactured.
And in that moment, Truman makes the ultimate choice. He chooses freedom over comfort, authenticity over illusion. He bows to the cameras and walks away, leaving behind the world that had defined him for so long.
It's such a simple gesture, but it's packed with meaning. He's reclaiming his narrative and taking control of his own life.
It's a reminder that we all have that power within us to choose our own paths, even when it feels like the world is conspiring against us.
And you know what I find really interesting? The reaction of the viewers within the film. Some are shocked, some are cheering, and some are just flipping channels looking for the next distraction.
It's like a commentary on our own desensitization to spectacle, right?
Huh.
We're so bombarded with information and entertainment that it's hard to know what's real anymore.
And it makes you wonder, are we all just living in our own little Truman shows to some extent?
Mhm.
Always performing for an invisible audience, seeking validation and connection through likes and shares and followers.
It's a question worth pondering, for sure, and one that we'll definitely be exploring further when we come back after the break.
And we're back, diving deeper into The Truman Show. One thing that really strikes me about this film is how, even though it deals with some pretty dark themes, it still manages to be surprisingly optimistic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Truman's whole life has been this elaborate lie orchestrated for the entertainment of millions, but somehow the film doesn't leave you feeling cynical or hopeless.
Right. It's like it's saying, yeah, the world can be a messed up place and people can be manipulative and cruel, but even in the face of all that, there's still hope for something better.
I think that hope comes from Truman himself. You know, even after he discovers the truth about his world, he doesn't give up. He doesn't become bitter or vengeful.
Exactly. He chooses to embrace freedom even though it means facing the unknown. It's like he's saying, okay, so my life has been a lie, but that doesn't mean I have to keep living in that lie.
It's such a powerful message of resilience and self-determination.
Yeah.
And it's especially resonant in today's world where it feels like we're constantly bombarded with information and pressures from all sides.
You said it. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and like we're losing control of our own narratives. But The Truman Show reminds us that we always have a choice.
And that choice, that act of choosing freedom and authenticity, that's what ultimately defines Truman's journey. And I think it's something that we can all relate to on some level.
Totally. I mean, haven't we all had moments where we felt like we were playing a role or living someone else's expectations?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like those times when you're scrolling through social media and everyone seems to be living these perfect lives.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, is this even real?
Haha, exactly. It's like everyone's putting on a show for the camera, and it's easy to get caught up in that and start comparing ourselves and feeling inadequate.
Which is exactly what The Truman Show is warning us about, right?
Mm.
It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of manufactured reality and the importance of seeking out authentic experiences.
For sure, it's like the film is saying, don't let yourself be defined by the expectations of others. Find your own truth and live it, even if it means stepping outside your comfort zone.
And Truman's escape from Sea Haven is the ultimate act of defiance, right? He's literally breaking free from the confines of his manufactured world and choosing to face the uncertainties of the real world.
That image of his boat crashing through the painted sky, it's just so powerful. It's a symbol of shattering illusions and embracing the unknown.
And what's interesting is how the viewers within the film react to Truman's escape. Some are cheering him on, while others are just flipping channels looking for something else to watch.
Yeah, it's like a commentary on our own short attention spans and how easily we can become desensitized to things.
It's like we're so used to consuming spectacle that we forget about the real human stories behind it all.
And that's what makes The Truman Show so timeless. It's not just a commentary on media and entertainment, it's also a reflection on what it means to be human and to live a meaningful life.
Absolutely. It's about connection, authenticity, and the courage to break free from the things that are holding us back.
And on that note, we want to turn the conversation over to you, our listeners. Have you ever felt like you were living in your own Truman Show?
What are some of the painted skies in your life? Those limitations or fears that might be holding you back from truly living your truth?
Share your thoughts and insights with us because ultimately, The Truman Show reminds us that we all have the power to choose our own paths and create our own destinies.
So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep striving for those genuine moments of connection and experience. And as Truman himself said, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.